Good morning, 8th grade. Welcome to week 12. Today is June 8th, and it is day 1. So we are going to continue with our volume review. We only have a little bit left. I believe it's going to take us through this week, and then we'll be done with our volume. So you can expect that for the remainder of the week. Just a quick announcement. Tuesday is going to be a professional development, Tuesday, June 9th. So you will still have independent work to do. It'll be the normal lesson, exit ticket kind of deal, but the teachers are going to be in meetings all day, so we will not be available to answer your questions. If I have some time to look at the stream or any of your private messages, I will, but we are supposed to be unavailable to the students tomorrow. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that, okay? So you click on your classwork tab. There will be an agenda posted for week 12. I just haven't put it up yet. You'll go to week 12, day 1, June 8th. So you have your lesson here. You'll complete the lesson. The answers are on the following slides. I'm going to use my larger version because I just feel like it's easier for you guys to see. So your warm-up, you were asked to find the height of the cylinder. Oh, that should say cone. That's a mistake. Okay. So there are steps. You identify what you are given, radius, volume, height, and then you solve for your height like we did on Friday. Okay, most of you guys did very well with this. Some of you were asking about the pi situation. When the volume is given in terms of pi, you work through it and kind of pretend like it's not there for majority of the time. For example, when you multiply by 3, you only multiply 48 and times 3. You leave pi alone because then when you get to the inverses, when you divide by pi, it cancels out anyway, and you just do the quotient of the numbers. So that's why I always say when it's in terms of pi, it's always a little bit easier because at some point that pi usually cancels out and there's not as much rounding needed. Okay? All right, so to find the radius, you're going to need a square root calculator. So if you're using your iPhone, you're going to turn it horizontal and the square root is above sine, S-I-N. If you do not have an iPhone or a calculator that has a square root key, then you can use the calculator link that has been provided to you, and it's located right here at the bottom next to ABS, which is absolute value. Okay? All right. So here's our first diagram. We're given a cone. The volume is 216 pi, and it's asking us for a radius. It looks like we have a height. There is a link that I have here in the lesson, so I will also attach it to your lesson tab as well for support, okay? So let's go through how we would find this radius. So step 1, we're going to start off the same way we always do and list our information. So we have our volume is in terms of pi, so that's 216 pi. We have our height, which is 8 inches. And we are looking for our radius. Okay. So we're going to write our formula for the cone. Remember that you can use the one that's 1/3 times pi times r squared times the height, but with our calculator situation, we're going to use the one where the denominator is 3 because it makes it easier for our calculations given the calculators and links that most of you guys have been using. So our formula will be this, pi r squared times the height over 3, okay? So we're going to plug in the information that we were given. So our volume is 216 pi, okay, equal to pi times radius squared times the height over 3. Okay, so last time we did our exponents first, but this time since we don't have something, we don't know what this value is to the second power, we're going to jump right into getting rid of this fraction. So in order to get rid of the division of 3, we're going to multiply by 3 on both sides. Multiplying by 3 over here will cancel out 3 over 3 equals 1, so we get rid of the fraction. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. Now here again is that same thing I was just mentioning earlier. When we do this multiplication, we are only multiplying 3 times 216. We're pretending pi isn't there and just attaching it to our product after. Because what's nice when it's in terms of pi, it will cancel out as we keep inversing. So the product of 3 times 216 is 648. We bring pi back, okay, equals just our numerator that's left. So pi times r squared times the height. Now remember, our goal is to get radius isolated, so the operations happening to the radius is multiplication, so we're going to inverse by dividing by the values that are multiplying the radius. So that would be pi and h. So pi over pi will cancel, h over h will cancel. We'll be left with r squared on the right, and whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we're going to, oh my gosh, I never put 8. We know the height. Ugh, ay. Let me fix this. You know what, I'm just going to start over. Ooh, I wish you guys were with me so that one of you I know would have stopped me. All right, so pi times r squared. We know the height, it's 8. Okay, now we'll do the same thing we just did, right? We're going to multiply by 3, so we already know what that is. These 3's will cancel because 3 over 3 is 1. Multiply by 3, and we already know this product. 3 times 216 is 648. I knew something looked weird. Okay, so we're left with our numerator. Okay, there we go. Now, again, we're trying to isolate the r, so we're going to inverse. And we're going to inverse by dividing by pi and 8. Okay, so I can rewrite it like this if I wanted to, because commutative property, you can switch them. Doesn't matter, they're going to cancel out anyway. Pi over pi cancels, 8 over 8 cancels. So we're left with r squared. The only reason why I switched it is because when I come over here and I divide by 8 pi, just lines up nicely. Pi over pi will cancel, and we can just do our quotient, 648 divided by 8. So we'd be left with the quotient of 81. Now, this is where I've noticed a few of you stopping. You think you're done, but this r squared is not r isolated yet. So the way we inverse a square of a number is by finding the square root. So we're going to square root. The square root of a square cancels it out, and that gets us our r isolated. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So we find the square root of 81, and that's going to give us 9. Okay, so our final answer will be, I'll put it here, r equals 9 inches. Okay, so let's go through that one more time. So we were given the cone, we were given a volume in terms of pi, we were given the height, and we're looking for the radius. We have our formula at the top. First thing we did is multiply by 3 to eliminate the fraction. Did that on the other side, and we just multiplied the numbers. So 3 times 216 gives us 648. We bring down the pi. Then we're going to divide by 8 and pi to get our semi-isolated. Okay, we do that to the other side. The pi's will cancel. We just divide 648 by 8. We get a quotient of 81. To get r by itself, we're going to inverse the square by square root. You do the same to the other side, and the square root of 81 is 9. Okay? All right. If they asked you for a diameter, the only other thing you would have to do at this point is take that radius and multiply by 2. So the radius is 9, the diameter would be 18. Okay? All right. Everything I went through is on your lesson. You can see everything I just did there. There's a few more examples. Oh, here's the steps. Exactly what I did, so use them as a guide. Another example, this one it asks you for the diameter, so you would have to take that additional step and multiply by 2. We identify information. We have a height of 6, volume of 18 pi, looking for the diameter. Plug in the information following the same steps. Multiply by 3 first, cancels out the fraction. Multiply by 3 on the other side, only the numbers. 3 times 18 is 54, bring down the pi. Now we're trying to isolate r, so we inverse by dividing by 6 pi. In the lesson, I use the commutative property and rewrite the expression on the right, just so that the numbers line up nicely. When you cancel, you can see it a little clearer. And then whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. The pi's would cancel. We'd be left with the quotient of 54 divided by 6, which is 9. The final step is to find that square root. Remember to do that, guys, because a lot of you wind up forgetting that step. You think your answer is 9, but you have to find that square root, which the square root of 9 is 3. And then remember, we were looking for a diameter, so you have to go that additional step and multiply by 2 to give you 6. Okay, 6 centimeters would be your final answer. Here's another one for you to try. Oh no, okay, we jump right into, good, this is where I wanted. The volume when it's out of pi. So I'm gonna copy this example down to walk you through it. Alrighty. Perfect. Alright, so it looks like we are given a volume of 408.3 centimeters cubed. Notice it's telling us at the bottom to round to the nearest tenths for us to find that radius. And then our height is going to be 12. I'm not going to forget that this time. And we are looking for the radius. Okay? Remember, if you are ever looking for a diameter, you just take that answer and multiply it by 2. Okay? So, let's figure out how this will look if our volume is now not in terms of pi. It's going to be very similar. It's just that we have to do some rounding now because they're going to be approximated values, okay? All right, so first thing we'll do is write our formula like always. So we have V equals pi times r squared times the height over 3. Plug in the information that we are given. So our volume was 408.3 equals pi times r squared times the height over 3. So same as before, we're going to multiply by 3 to get rid of that fraction. So let's do that. On the right side, it just cancels out that fraction. Oh my god, I did it again. Look, the height. Okay, we know the height. The height is 12. So I'm just going to squeeze that in there and pretend that didn't happen. Okay, so the 3's will cancel. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So times 3. 408.3 times 3 gives us 1,224.9. And then we are left with the right side of pi times r squared times 12. Okay, now here's where it changes a little bit. We're going to multiply 12 times pi. We're going to multiply those two first before we divide. So you would use your pi calculator, which is either the link provided, or you use your iPhone and you turn it horizontally. Pi is next to the rand. And again, when you multiply with pi or operate with pi, it's always best to keep 5 digits after the decimal. So we're going to get 1224.9 on the left will stay. And then 12 times pi is approximately 37.69911 times r squared. Okay, there was obviously more digits after this, but I'm just keeping 5 digits after for my best approximation. Now we will divide by this number, okay? So we put this as our denominator to divide and cancel. We'll be left with r squared. Okay, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So we put this over 37.69911. And then this quotient is going to give us approximately 32.49148. Okay? Now, same as before, to get this r isolated, because it's squared, we find the square root. And square root will cancel that square out, leave us with r. Oops, I'm just going to bring that up. Okay, and whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So I put this number under the square root. Square root is located above the sign key if you are using an iPhone. Otherwise, use the calculator link provided. That square root was next to the ABS key. Okay, so you press square root, you put this digit underneath. If you're using the iPhone, you can just put the digit and then press the square root key. Okay, and we're going to get 5.70013, and then rounding to the nearest tenths, it would be r equals 5.7 units was centimeters. Okay, so a little more involved just because we are approximating those numbers when we multiply. Just remember to keep those 5 digits after, and you should get a pretty close answer to what it should be. Okay, it's understandable when operating with pi that happens because it is an irrational number and just goes on forever. So there's always a little leeway with the approximated answer that you come up with. It's usually like 2/10 below, 2/10 above. Okay, but if you follow these steps, we should all arrive at the same answer. So again, it's provided in the lesson that's posted. You have the steps here. I think the steps are the best thing because it really takes you through everything that I just did. You have a couple more examples to try. Always the second one is looking for the diameter, so just remember to do the same thing and then multiply your radius by 2. So the steps are there. Step 1, identify the information you are given. Step 2, plug in and solve. So again, you'll see we still multiply by 3 first, right? We then we multiply by pi times 7. So we get an answer that has those 5 digits after the decimal. We then divide to inverse and then square root. Most of the time your radius will probably come out to like a decimal that's not hard to figure out what it should round to. So for example, this one came out to 3.000. This is supposed to be very close to 3, okay? And then again, we were looking for the diameter, so we took that 3 and times it by 2. All right, so now you have your exit ticket. You can locate that right here. Here are the steps just as a reminder from the lesson, because I know some of you don't bother to look at it, even though you should. You click on the form, and then you'll answer your questions here. I think they're very similar to the ones that are shown in the lesson. The last few are just some spiral review, which you guys should be fine with since Friday was a review of everything we've done already. And then click submit when you're done. All right, guys, I hope you have a great day. Take care.